Nigel Farage, the next Prime Minister? Reform UK Chairman Zia Youssef is making bold claims, and the latest polls might just back him up. In a shocking turn of events, Reform UK has surged past Labour, securing 24% of voter support. Youssef isn't pulling punches as he predicts Farage's ascension to Downing Street, doubling down in a fiery GB News interview. Is this the start of a political earthquake? Stick around as we unpack the drama and hear Youssef tear into Keir Starmer's leadership. You won't want to miss this.
Well, what's happening across the country is that the British people are realizing that there is now a real viable alternative to the same two old parties. For the first time in a century in the UK, we are seeing the stranglehold of the two old parties start to slip. We have effectively a three-way dead heat in British politics now. And this is remarkable because remember, before the last general election, just 6 months ago, Reform had 0 MPs. Today, Reform, of course, have 5 brilliant MPs, and they do a far better job than the 121 Tory MPs of holding this dystopian Keir Starmer government to account. But the fact that now it is clear that Nigel Farage is going to be the next Prime Minister, we are seeing that being taken very, very seriously, including, as your colleague Christopher has just said, the inside this Keir Starmer government. They are extremely concerned, and so they should be, because Reform has now overtaken the Labour Party for the first time ever. 1 in 4 British people now support Reform. And look, Reform has enormous upward momentum. The Labour Party have extraordinary downward momentum. What's happening in this country is the British people are waking up that there is a real alternative and a new way of doing politics.
So you are determined here, you're willing to say here and now that you are going to be the next government and Nigel Farage is going to be the next Prime Minister?
I've been saying that for some time, absolutely. And if you look at the extrapolation of the data, look, a year ago, Reform UK was polling at 8% and had 15,000 members. As we speak today, we have 105,000 members and we are polling at between 22 and 24%, depending on the poll. And this has happened, as I said, in the space of a year.
The political landscape of the United Kingdom has been flipped on its head. Reform UK, a party that many dismissed as a single-issue outlier, is now a serious contender in British politics. Their dramatic rise in the polls has sent shockwaves through Westminster, and their chairman, Zia Youssef, isn't shying away from bold predictions. In a high-stakes interview with Dawn Neeson on GB News, Youssef confidently declared, "Nigel Farage will absolutely be the next Prime Minister." The statement was more than a mere prediction. It was a gauntlet thrown at the feet of the established political elite. Reform UK has surged to 24% in voter support, leapfrogging Labour and positioning itself as a credible challenger to the Tories. Youssef's words echoed the sentiments of a growing segment of the British public. "We've had enough of career politicians," he said, his voice firm. "People are tired of the same old promises, the same old failures." Nigel Farage speaks to the frustrations of real Britons, those who feel ignored by Westminster, left behind by the system, and betrayed by the political establishment. Neeson pressed Youssef on his bold claim, asking, "Are you truly willing to say here and now that Reform UK will be the next government and that Nigel Farage will sit in 10 Downing Street?" Without hesitation, Youssef doubled down, stating, "Absolutely. The people want change, and we are the only party offering a real alternative. The polls speak for themselves." The clip went viral within hours, sparking fierce debates across social media. Supporters of Reform UK celebrated the declaration as a long-overdue challenge to the status quo, while critics dismissed it as bluster. Yet, the numbers don't lie. Reform UK's unprecedented surge has rattled both Labour and the Conservatives, with analysts scrambling to explain the phenomenon. Meanwhile, Labour leader Keir Starmer is facing intense scrutiny for his perceived lack of direction. Starmer's recent unveiling of his plan for change was meant to refocus his government on key issues like housing, the NHS, and energy. However, his decision to sidestep immigration, a hot-button issue for voters, has drawn sharp criticism. Many argue that Starmer's reluctance to set migration targets reveals a disconnect between Labour and the public's concerns. On GB News, Minister Matthew Pennycook defended Starmer's position, insisting that arbitrary targets erode public trust. But this explanation has done little to quell the backlash. Reform UK has seized on the controversy, framing themselves as the only party willing to tackle tough issues head-on. Adding fuel to the fire is Starmer's declining approval rating, with many questioning his ability to connect with ordinary voters. Keir Starmer talks about a mission-led government, Yousaf remarked during his GB News interview. But what's his mission? To dodge the hard questions? To keep the public in the dark? Reform UK is here to bring real solutions, not empty rhetoric. As Reform UK continues its meteoric rise, the Tories are also feeling the heat. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has struggled to unite his party amid infighting and policy failures. The Conservatives, once the dominant force in British politics, now find themselves sandwiched between a resurgent Reform UK and an embattled Labour Party. In the midst of this upheaval, another political drama is unfolding in London. Mayor Sadiq Khan, a polarising figure at the best of times, is now facing backlash over reports that he is set to receive a knighthood in the New Year Honours List. The news has sparked outrage among critics who argue that Khan's track record as mayor hardly warrants such recognition. Matthew Goodwin Freeman, a councillor and outspoken critic of Khan, didn't hold back during a fiery appearance on GB News. "He's not a knighted mayor," Freeman declared, "he's just a nightmare." He went on to list a litany of failures under Khan's leadership: rising violent crime, a staggering 140 days of strikes, and the controversial ULEZ expansion, which has been widely condemned as a cash grab. Freeman's comments were met with applause from some quarters, but the controversy didn't end there. Ex-detective Peter Bleksley painted a grim picture of London's streets, describing a city where violent criminals operate with impunity. "Khan has completely failed to tackle knife crime," Bleksley said. "The statistics speak for themselves. Families are grieving, neighbourhoods are suffering, and the mayor is nowhere to be found." The criticism extends beyond crime. Khan's handling of transport issues, including his broken promise of 0 days of strikes, has alienated many Londoners. Even his environmental initiatives, such as the ULEZ expansion, have drawn ire for their financial impact on ordinary citizens. Yet, despite the backlash, Khan's supporters argue that his knighthood is a recognition of his groundbreaking political career. As London's first Muslim mayor, Khan has shattered glass ceilings and achieved historic milestones. His defenders contend that his contributions to public service should not be overshadowed by his critics. The knighthood, reportedly part of Starmer's first New Year Honours List, has also raised questions about Labour's priorities. Some view it as a tone-deaf move at a time when the party is struggling to regain the trust of voters. For Reform UK, the controversy surrounding Khan is just another example of why change is needed. As the political drama unfolds, one thing is clear: Britain is at a crossroads. Reform UK's rise signals a growing discontent with the traditional parties, and Zia Yousaf's declaration about Nigel Farage becoming the next Prime Minister has only intensified the debate. Whether Reform UK can sustain its momentum remains to be seen, but for now they are shaking the very foundations of British politics. If you're as shocked as we are by the political drama unfolding in the UK, hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and stay tuned for more explosive updates. From Nigel Farage's potential rise to PM to the backlash against Sadiq Khan, we're covering every twist and turn. Don't miss a moment.